The movie begins in 1989. A mischievous young boy named Teo is playing soccer with his friends in the yard after school. He imagines himself as Diego Maradona, his idol. One of his friends does Teo's homework in exchange for a chance to play on his Game Boy. After the game, Teo runs home. Meanwhile, his older brother Oscar is studying their mother's research. She disappeared several years ago. She was a scientist researching wormholes in space and time. Oscar feeds his beloved pet turtle, Pepe, and prepares dinner for his little brother. At the same time, Teo sneaks into his room through the window so that Oscar won't find out he was outside playing instead of doing homework. Oscar checks Teo's homework and then tends to a scrape on his knee. The boys are looked after by their grandmother, the only close family they have left. Determined to find their mother, Oscar carefully studies her research. He believes she got trapped in a time wormhole. He wants to become a scientist like her and bring her back. Teo, however, says he heard a rumor from the neighbor that their mom ran off with a married coworker. Oscar tries to convince him that it's not true and promises he'll find her once he deciphers her work. That evening, Oscar listens to music when his grandmother enters the room and whistles their secret family signal. They have a heart-to-heart talk, and she asks him not to be mad at Teo for his playful nature. The next day, Oscar listens to stories from the local shopkeeper. The man's daughter Elena approaches, and Oscar is stunned when he sees her. She invites him to a dance rehearsal for the upcoming festival, but shy Oscar declines, trying to hide his feelings. Later, Oscar sees Elena again. This time, she's with a group of friends, including Teo. She invites him to go to the movies together, but Teo jumps in and says Oscar is too busy. Feeling hurt, Oscar tells their grandmother that Teo sneaks out through the window to play when he's not allowed. That same evening, the grandmother catches Teo climbing back in. The next day, Teo is home alone. He grabs the last folder of their mom's research and makes paper airplanes out of the pages. He also finds her last photo and a list of coordinates. He slips the photo into his pocket. Just then, Oscar returns home. Teo hurriedly stuffs the airplanes back into the folder, but he doesn't have time to hide the sheet with the coordinates. So he quickly sticks the paper inside an encyclopedia before Oscar notices. Teo overhears Oscar talking to his turtle, Pepe, about how much he misses their mom. Teo then sets out to find the location from her final photograph, the rooftop of a building near their house. While sitting on the spot, he eats a banana and tosses the peel off the edge. But instead of landing, it falls into a glowing energy vortex, making an electric sound. Startled, he looks down. He throws his roller skates, and they vanish too. Shocked but excited, he tosses in a few more things, and they all disappear as well. He rushes home to tell Oscar, but Oscar discovers that Teo made paper planes out of their mother's research. They argue. Teo tries to explain that he found a wormhole, but their fight is interrupted by their grandmother. Tired of their constant bickering, she punishes them both. Oscar blames everything on Teo, then starts talking to Pepe, completely ignoring his brother. In revenge, Teo grabs Pepe and throws him into the wormhole. Back home, he sees Oscar searching frantically for his pet and starts to realize the gravity of what he's done. That night, Teo climbs out the window and returns to the wormhole. Swallowing his fear, he jumps in to rescue Pepe. The wormhole throws him 33 years into the future. Thankfully, he finds Pepe safe and sound in a bush. Carrying him, Teo sneaks back into his home through the window. He gently puts Pepe back and slips into bed. The next morning, Oscar wakes up and walks right past Teo and Pepe without noticing them. Oscar is now an adult with a beard. He heads to the local store to get groceries for his grandmother. The same shopkeeper from 33 years ago still runs it. Before leaving, Oscar notices Elena, the shopkeeper's daughter, who's come home for vacation. Once again, he's left speechless when he sees her. She's now a scientist too, just like Oscar. He teaches physics at the university, and she's a mathematician. After he leaves, her father tells her that Oscar is a kind and caring man who's had a hard life. First, he lost his mother, then his younger brother, and now he takes care of their grandmother, who's starting to develop dementia. From their conversation, we learn that Elena is recently divorced. Meanwhile, Teo wakes up in his childhood bed. We see that Oscar preserved their room exactly as it was, in memory of his brother. Teo picks up Pepe to show Oscar he found his pet, but instead, he runs into their grandmother, who is now very old. Oscar returns home, and the grandmother shows him the turtle Teo brought. When Oscar sees his brother, he faints. Oscar asks his grandmother why she looks so old and who this man is. Teo looks at the TV and doesn't understand what it is or where the buttons are. Oscar regains consciousness and tells him it's the year 2022. Then, he says he's Teo's brother. That's when Teo realizes he's traveled through time. Oscar asks him about the wormhole, and Teo starts messing with him, saying he tried to tell him all those years ago, but Oscar wouldn't listen. And now, decades later, he's finally ready to believe him. Teo shows him the photo of their mother standing near the wormhole. Then he leads his brother to that very spot. Teo throws a stone at it, but it simply bounces off the vortex. Oscar realizes it's the exit of the wormhole. It's impossible to go back through it. They need to find another one that leads to 1989. They go downstairs and Oscar finds the old roller skates from the past. He takes a picture of them and Teo is amazed by the smartphone. Oscar explains that it's not just a camera. It's a phone, music player, video game console, and more. Later, they sit and try to figure out what to do next. Suddenly, Oscar asks how Pepe fell into the wormhole and realizes that Teo threw the turtle in. They go to Oscar's boss and try to explain the entire situation, but the man brushes them off, calling them crazy, and tells Oscar he should see the doctor who treated him for panic attacks. As they leave the office, Teo asks what panic attacks are. Oscar explains that during one episode, he once threw a pencil at a student, which is why he was assigned a therapist. When they return home, they find a girl named Camilla there. She sometimes helps take care of their grandmother. Teo introduces himself as Diego Armando, saying he was named after Maradona. Camilla mentions that Maradona passed away not long ago. Teo is shocked by the news. Later, Oscar tries to figure out how their mother located wormholes. Teo asks if he ever saw her paper with a list of coordinates. He then remembers slipping it into an encyclopedia and starts searching for it. Oscar says nobody uses encyclopedias anymore. They all use Wikipedia now. Just then, their grandmother enters and says she gave all the encyclopedias to the grocery store owner. Before bedtime, Teo asks Oscar why he kept all his old things in the room. He realizes that his brother did miss him after all. The next morning, Oscar prepares to go ask the shopkeeper about the encyclopedia and tells Teo to stay home. Naturally, Teo immediately goes out to explore the shops. He finds a VR headset in a store and starts playing with it, accidentally knocking over several boxes and breaking their contents. Oscar has to show up and pay 1,200 euros in damages. Then, together, they go to the grocery store to ask about the encyclopedias. The shopkeeper says the books are at his house. He spots Teo and comments that the boy looks a lot like the missing Teo. Oscar quickly invents a story, saying that Teo is the son of his cousin from another town. Elena walks over and Teo instantly recognizes her, telling her how beautiful she's become. When she asks how he knows her, he replies that Oscar told him all about her. They all go back to the man's house together, where they meet Elena's children, Alba and Pablo. While Oscar searches for the missing paper, Teo sits with the kids and asks Pablo about his Nintendo Switch. Alba is baffled by his strange questions and asks what cave he crawled out of.
Alexa, ¿qué hora es?
Son las 6:30 de la tarde.
¿Qué? ¿Tampoco conoces a Alexa?
Alba.
Claro que la conozco, Alexa, de toda la vida.
Alba tells Teo that in today's world, it's risky to use gadgets without knowing how to protect yourself from online threats. She explains that one of the simplest and most effective ways to stay safe is by using a VPN. After all, you could easily connect to some random public Wi-Fi network without realizing it, and in just seconds, cyber criminals could intercept your personal data. That's why NordVPN, the sponsor of today's video, is such a game changer. With NordVPN, even Teo could enjoy all the advantages of the internet without worrying about hackers, trackers, or anyone snooping on his activity. All he has to do is download it using my link, nordvpn.com/MrRecap. And here's the best part. NordVPN also lets you access websites, shows, and other online content that might be blocked in your country for whatever reason. Or if you are on holidays and cannot see your favorite show, try using NordVPN to access content which you have purchased. And if you're tired of ads trying to sell you unnecessary junk, Threat Protection blocks them for a smooth, safe browsing experience. It also scans any files you download for malware. Plus, and I know this will interest my viewers, every purchase of a 2-year plan comes with an exclusive creator deal. You'll get 4 extra bonus months. This is the best offer NordVPN has right now, and you can only get it through creators like me. And if for any reason you're not satisfied, no worries. NordVPN has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, if you do not like the product, you can get your money back within 30 days since your purchase date. Get NordVPN using the link in the description or the pinned comment. nordvpn.com/MrRecap. Elena offers to stay for dinner. She suggests sushi, but Teo has no idea what that is. Oscar wants to go home, but Elena insists at least Diego should stay for dinner and asks him to write down his phone number. After dinner, Teo prepares to walk home by himself. Alba is shocked. She asks how anyone could let a kid who knows nothing about the world walk home alone. Back home, Oscar and Teo share thoughts about their day. Oscar excitedly talks about his new algorithm for locating wormholes, while Teo is amazed by social media, Twitch, video games, and YouTube, especially the channel Mr. Recapped from YouTube that retells movies. He even tells Oscar to subscribe to it. They head to a bridge where the wormhole should be and toss some bouncy balls off the edge, but nothing happens. Oscar guesses the wormholes may have shifted over time. Back at home, Oscar immediately dives into more calculations. Teo asks if he has any friends or a girlfriend. The questions catch Oscar off guard. Teo notices that Oscar and Elena don't seem to be friends anymore.
¿Y ya no eres amigo de Elena?
¿Cuándo fui yo amigo de Elena? Elena era amiga tuya. Como todos.
Suddenly, Elena gets a message from Oscar's phone. She and her kids show up at his house. It turns out Teo sent them the invitation from Oscar's phone. They all sit down for tea and cookies, when the grandmother suddenly blurts out, "Oscar is not my grandson. My grandson is Teo." Oscar quickly jumps in and says his name is Diego Armando. Elena and her father note how much he resembles the missing Teo. Elena asks him to show off his Rubik's Cube skills, and he solves it in 10 seconds. But Alba keeps being sarcastic, mocking him for claiming time travel is real.
Alba.
Oscar apologizes and says he has to focus on his important calculations, leaving the guests with his grandmother and Teo, and going to his room. Later, Elena walks in and sees his mother's research pinned to the board. She's impressed by his work, but points out it lacks some mathematical precision. He promises to show her his full notes later. Elena takes her kids out shopping so Oscar can concentrate in peace, and she takes Teo, aka Diego Armando, along with them. At the store, Alba keeps grumbling like a typical annoyed teenager. Elena ignores her whining and takes Teo to a changing room. Behind the curtain, she hears him quoting a famous football commentator, pretending to be Diego Maradona.
¡Gol de Diego Armando Maradona!
She recognizes the quote word for word. It's exactly what he used to say as a child.
Marcando, se arranca por la derecha, genio del fútbol mundial.
She calls out Teo, and he instinctively answers. Realizing it truly is him, she hugs him. Teo tells her about the wormhole his mom discovered. Oscar and Teo bring her to the wormhole's location. Oscar throws a ball, but it bounces off the surface. It's an exit, not an entry. The actual entrance is in 1989. Elena asks why no one discovered it during construction, and Oscar explains that it only activates under specific acceleration, like the force of falling. She finally understands that Oscar had been right all along, while everyone else thought he was crazy. Later, Oscar shows her his calculations, and Elena finds some errors. They begin working together and slowly grow closer. Oscar even starts dancing the way he did when he was a kid. Teo shows Pablo and Alba the old things Oscar kept after his disappearance. Among them, they find a toy labeled Teo. Pablo asks who Teo is, and Teo says he was Oscar's missing brother. Alba comments that he probably died, and that's why Oscar lost it. Teo is hurt by her words. Meanwhile, Oscar and Elena finish their calculations. Everything checks out, but Oscar says they still need a couple of days to verify the data. Elena realizes he's just stalling. He doesn't want to let his brother go. He missed him too much. They have a heart-to-heart talk, and Oscar imagines how his life could have turned out if Teo had never disappeared. He says he would have been a completely different person, someone brave enough to confess his love for Elena as a kid. But Elena says she wouldn't want her past changed. Otherwise, she wouldn't have her children, and they're the most important part of her life. Teo overhears their conversation. He secretly writes down the coordinates from the board and decides to return home right away. The next day, Teo approaches Pablo and Alba and asks them to take him to the coordinates he copied. Alba doesn't want to go, but Teo persuades her by saying she'll change her opinion about Oscar once she sees everything with her own eyes. He promises to prove Oscar was right, and if he fails, he and Pablo will be her servants for a whole week.
Seremos tus esclavos durante 3 días.
¿Y a mí por qué me metes?
Somos un equipo, hombre.
Una semana. Seréis mis esclavos durante una semana.
They head to the seaside and begin throwing stones off a high parapet. Teo finds the wormhole, but Alba doesn't notice anything unusual. He tells her this is the wormhole that will send him back to his original year, 1989. She calls him crazy, so to prove it, Teo jumps down yelling, "I can't swim!" Alba and Pablo have no choice but to jump in after him. They wash up on the shore, and Pablo, confused, points to the opposite bank and asks where all the tall apartment buildings went. Teo welcomes him to 1989, but as they walk into the town center, they realize they're not in 1989. They've landed in 1949. Alba is shocked. Teo admits that Oscar had dozens of coordinates written on the board, and he just copied down the first ones he saw. They ask him how to get back, but Teo doesn't know. He only knows how to return from 1989. Alba is surprised her phone doesn't have any signal. Teo calls her the strange one this time, reminding her that mobile phones didn't exist in 1949. He warns them not to go to the police. If authorities find out, they might run experiments on them. Back in 2022, Elena calls Oscar and says the kids are missing and their phones are off. Oscar suspects that Teo went back to 1989 and took Elena's children with him. They rush to the wormhole that leads to 1989. Standing on the rooftop of an unfinished hotel, they hold hands and jump into the wormhole together. Meanwhile, in 1949, the kids are getting hungry. To make some money, Teo suggests using Alba's Bluetooth earphones for a street performance. They present Alba as a psychic who can guess the words people write on a board. Pablo secretly feeds her the answers through the earbuds. Among the crowd is a strange young man watching them closely. They manage to earn a bit of cash, but when the police show up, Alba uses the whistle signal Teo taught her, the same whistle the brothers' grandmother once used with them. They escape the police, but the mysterious young man catches them and kidnaps them. He drives them into the forest in a van and then leads them on foot down hidden trails. Teo feels guilty for dragging Pablo and Alba into this, but the kids reassure him that it doesn't matter now. They need to stick together. For the first time in a while, Alba drops her bratty attitude, and the three share a group hug. The man brings them to a secret guerrilla camp and gives the same whistle signal to let them know he's an ally. The camp elders interrogate him, asking why he brought children. He claims they know the secret resistance code. The elders then ask the kids who taught them this code. Teo is confused. When the man whistles, Teo says it's a game he used to play with his grandmother. A young woman approaches, and Teo immediately recognizes her. It's his grandmother, Maria, in her youth. Overwhelmed, he hugs her. Maria doesn't understand what's going on, but feels a connection to the kids. Later, the children ask Teo why he never knew their grandmother was a gorilla. He says she never talked about it. Alba suggests telling her the truth so she'll help them, but Teo says they can't. Revealing too much could cause a butterfly effect and change the future. Back in 1989, Oscar and Elena wander the streets. Everything feels like a dream to her, until they see posters about Teo's disappearance. They go to Oscar's childhood home to check if the kids might be there. Oscar begins reflecting on the past. Suddenly, they hear someone come into the house and hide in the closet. It's young Oscar, coming home after a long search for his brother. He cries bitterly over losing Teo. Adult Oscar and Elena silently watch from the closet. Tears stream down Oscar's face. When the boy finally falls asleep, the adult Oscar approaches him and whispers in his ear, "Everything's going to be okay." Meanwhile, in the guerrilla camp, the children are being issued fake IDs. When Teo learns they have a camera, he asks to take a photo with Maria. She poses with the children and her AK-47. At the moment of the shot, Teo ducks out of frame so he won't appear in the picture. He signs the photo and writes the year, 1949, on it. He asks Maria to promise to hang the photo in the most visible place in her house. In 1989, Oscar and Elena prepare to leave, but Oscar notices the photo of his grandmother on the wall has changed. The signature now says 1949. He realizes the kids are stuck in the past. They immediately return to the wormhole and go back to 2022. From there, they jump into the same wormhole the children used to travel to 1949. When they arrive, the gorillas are already waiting on the shore because Teo had told them his father would come to get him there. The gorillas whistle the signal, and Oscar responds with the correct whistle. They bring them to the camp to reunite with the kids. The brothers have a heart-to-heart talk. Teo says he doesn't want to return to 1989. He wants to stay in 2022. He's grown close to Pablo and Alba, but Oscar insists. He tells Teo that he's missed so much of the world, including SpongeBob SquarePants. Then he confesses that he needs Teo back in 1989. Teo doesn't believe him. Oscar used to ignore him as a kid and never wanted to play with him. Oscar tells him how painful it was when Teo disappeared, how much he missed his little brother. The time comes to go back. Maria helps load them into the van. The young man driving it offers her some pastries he baked himself, her favorites.
Son tus que te gustan, ¿no?
Vasme mal acostumbrar.
Ojalá.
He flirts with Maria, and Oscar realizes this is their grandfather. As they drive off, Teo asks the young man his name.
Yo, igual que este, Oscar.
¿Qué pasa? Es su abuelo.
Oscar asks his grandfather for some of those pastries to take home. They bring the pastries to their grandmother in 2022. She immediately recognizes the flavor and happily eats them. Then she says the same phrase she used to say back in the day when her beloved gave her those same treats.
Vasme mal acostumbrar.
The brothers stand before the wormhole. Oscar says that in the past, a whole week has passed since Teo vanished. He asks Teo not to explain everything at once, to reveal it to him slowly, so he can process it all. They hug, and Teo returns to his own timeline. Back in 1989, Oscar sees his brother on the street and immediately runs to hug him, tears in his eyes. At home, Teo tells their grandmother a made-up story, that some bandits kidnapped his turtle Pepe, and he went off to rescue him. The grandmother scolds him for what he did, saying she was worried sick all those days. Hearing this story, Oscar becomes upset. He begins throwing out their mother's research folders, telling Teo that he knows he's lying. He says Pepe probably just ran away, just like their mom did, and that's why he no longer believes in any of this time travel nonsense. That's when Teo tells him the truth, that he really went to the future. Oscar doesn't believe him, until Teo shows him the smartphone he secretly took from future Oscar. Teo explains that their mom didn't abandon them. She simply made a mistake in her calculations and got stuck in another time. That's why Oscar has to keep studying her work, to save her. He also tells Oscar that for now, he has to forget about Elena. Being with her could change her future. 20 years later, adult Oscar and Teo sit together in a new house, playing video games. Teo now has a son, whom he of course named Diego, and the boy helps take care of their grandmother, who's doing much better these days. It's around the same time that Elena comes back to town to visit her father after her divorce. Teo has invited her over. Oscar freezes again when he hears she's coming. After hesitating for a long while, he finally family heads to greet their guest. In a post-credit scene, we see Oscar and Teo's mother land in front of a group of monks in the Middle Ages. She looks around and realizes she miscalculated.